remember as a kid, I could hear the echo through the city. It's like this scream.
When they get into a 200-mile-an-hour car, there's an almost fighter pilot mentality.
Anything can happen.
I always think on my family.
All I do is pray for a safe race.
You need to respect the speed, but the second a driver has fear, you need to retire.
Formula One is the ultimate competition. Got drama.
There's a puncture!
Competitiveness, high stakes, politics.
How can you call that a fair championship?
It is described as a travelling circus.
We pack it all up, and 24 hours later, unpack it in a new part of the world.
We've all got thousands of employees that all share the desire to win.
The drivers are the best in the world.
We all believe we are the one.
Your teammate is your worst enemy.
He beats me every race. My career's done.
The ultimate goal is to be the best.
If you had Lewis Hamilton's same car, would you beat him?
Yes.
The highs are very high.
Grazie davvero.
The lows are very low.
I'm fucking sick of this. It's about making the correct choice.
Every day I break out in a cold sweat thinking, do I have the skill set to do it?
The risk of death will never go away.
Massive accident! I'm not worried about dying.
Whoa!
I'm willing to do anything.
Let's see who's the best. All right, am I good to sit?
Yeah.
All right, I'm good to go.
Are you happy with your hair?
I don't know, I haven't seen it. Probably, if you've asked me, then it must look shit.
Am I looking at you or down the lens?
At me, sorry.
Awesome.
Can I get you to tell me who you are and what you do for a job?
I'm Daniel Ricciardo and I'm a car mechanic. Alrighty, I got this. I'm gonna nail it. 3, 2, 1. I am Daniel Ricciardo. I was born in Perth, Australia, and I'm a Formula One driver. Sounds pretty good when I say that. I love that feeling of the car on the edge at such a high speed. I love the danger, that adrenaline and that excitement. More than anything, I love the feeling of winning. It's a beautiful thing.
And Ricciardo has got the inside line. Lewis Hamilton's brave defence of second place comes to an end. And down the inside goes Daniel Ricciardo.
That's how it's done, ladies.
And Daniel Ricciardo wins the Hungarian Grand Prix. I don't think anyone's smile could be bigger.
As a kid, I loved motorbikes. I loved NASCAR. Oh, shit. But F1, that was the fastest circuit cars in the world. That's really why I got into Formula One. I wanted to try and see if I could be the best in the world. Picturing myself on the top step of an F1 podium, I had visualized that feeling as a kid. To be world champion would mean the world to me. For my family, my dream involved sacrifices. My dad was building his own business, but also taking me karting on the weekends and spending the money he'd made to then put into me.
I remember as if it was yesterday. Daniel said to me that he wanted to give it a go in Europe. And a lot of friends said, oh, how could you let him go? But He was so determined.
That looks great.
How do you do it? What am I doing wrong here? Rip it off, man.
All the struggles, all the bad days, leaving home so young, winning a world title, it would make it all worth it. When I got into F1, everyone knew me as the happy guy and the nice guy. But I do have a kind of killer instinct. I do believe I can be world champion, and for me, it's like, why else would I be doing this?
And welcome along for the opening round of the Formula One World Championship in 2018.
Welcome to the 23rd Australian Grand Prix, held here in Albert Park, for the traditional first race of the season.
No Australian has been classified in the top 3 of their home race. Is this the year?
First race of the season is my home one. I love having a home race, but it's wild, you know. There's so much anticipation being drawn to that first race in March.
Can we get a quick selfie, mate?
Yeah, cheers.
And then, because it's in Australia, I'm the only Australian driver, I get that twofold.
Aussie, Aussie, Aussie!
How important is this season for you, as being a season in which you can compete for the championship?
Super important. Obviously, I'll see where I am personally, see where we are competitively.
Everybody recognises Daniel Ricciardo as being one of the biggest talents in Formula One. But a lot of people think it's this year or bust for him to take his first world title.
I think it's going to be a really exciting year because we've got 3 teams that look capable of winning races.
Last season, Lewis Hamilton of Mercedes and Sebastian Vettel of Ferrari were the top 2. This season, we're really excited to see if Daniel Ricciardo with Red Bull can properly fight with those 2 drivers.
It's easy to say that a champion from a previous year is the favourite, but Red Bull are going to be very hard to beat.
How does it look for you?
It's looking exciting. I think it should be close at the top with Mercedes, Ferrari, Red Bull.
In Formula One, we've got 10 teams,
And each team is trying to develop the best car possible. The more money you spend, the better your car is likely to be. But there's a massive difference in budgets in Formula One.
The smaller teams are quite often operating on a budget that's a fraction the size of the very biggest teams, like Ferrari and Mercedes.
So it's not a level playing field.
Guys, I mean, you know the position we are in here, you know.
If I understood what Walter told me last night, there is one of everything.
I'm Gunther Steiner. I'm the team principal of Haas F1 team. I love racing. It's my passion. I started off in the bottom as a mechanic. I'm doing it a long time, more than 30 years.
Oh, yeah, then you should be.
Setting up a Formula One team in the US was my idea, and I persuaded Gene Haas to do this.
I think in turn one, he had no choice. He had to, everybody was going whatever.
Gene has got a very successful NASCAR team, and he knows how racing works.
So he hit somebody?
Yeah, he hit because he...
There's a lot of money in Formula One. Can you compete with the teams with the big budgets? It's pretty hard. You know, you're talking 500-600 million or 140 million. But you just got to keep trying and trying. And a lot of success in racing comes down to just being stubborn.
Haas F1 is the first American Formula One team in more than 30 years. And coming in as a new team in Formula One, it's just so difficult.
I'm not convinced, but I'm cautiously optimistic, as I call it.
In a small team, we have less parts, less stuff. We need to do more with less.
How many people in your team altogether?
212.
Mercedes have more people on holiday at any one time.
Yeah.
We are the underdogs. We are new in here, but for sure we're not here just to make the numbers up. We are here to compete.
It's the first Friday practice. Teams have 90 minutes to test their setups around this 3-mile circuit.
most special things about Formula One is the way the weekend builds. Friday is practice.
That's when the teams and drivers get out on track to try and set their cars up and make sure it's performing the best it can. Saturday there's qualifying to set the order that the cars will start the race in. And then on Sunday we have the race itself.
Every session is dangerous. Last season in Melbourne, during practice, there were 3 crashes.
You all right?
Are you happy with the strategy we are taking?
Yeah, fine. The problem is, at some point, one's going to be right, one's going to be wrong.
Exactly.
You never know.
My name's Christian Horner. I'm the team principal of Aston Martin Red Bull Racing. So Bach effectively stops with me.
Sebastian Vettel, you are the world champion!
We're a subsidiary of an energy drink that's come along and won 4 back-to-back world championships. But that's in the past.
What do you reckon?
You know, we've spent 5 seasons now where we should have been real contenders. We need to win races this year. We need to take the challenge to the big teams.
All right? Get out there and enjoy it. I will. Yeah? Thank you. Let your driving do the talking, you'll be fine.
Every team has 2 drivers. We're fortunate to have Daniel Ricciardo. He's at the top of his game.
Well, you can see the people who are with
And we've got this exciting emerging talent in Max Verstappen. But you can just feel that anticipation of how we design a good car this year. Is it going to be successful? Is it going to be reliable?
Okay, well, let's see how we go.
I think it looks okay. I'm suggesting we're going to have a little look now.
Okay.
Let's go, please.
As a race car driver, your feeling is so in tune that you know after a few laps if the car is fast. A lot of it for me is confidence within the car, just having a feeling under the braking. Because you're coming up to a corner 300-something kilometers an hour, your instinct is like brake now, brake now, brake now, and you've got to push yourself to brake later and later and trust that the car will stop.
He's got confidence in that car. He is ripping the wheels off that.
What's your headline for today then?
Red Bull. They could easily find themselves in the front of the grid.
You're doing a good job.
Thanks, guys.
We had serious pace today. The car was performing well. And at the end of the day, performance is everything. I want to win because it's what I believe I can do, and I've worked all these years to do it. So no one's going to put more pressure on me than myself.
So who can set the fastest lap today and start tomorrow's race on pole position?
In qualifying, it's all designed to set the order for the start of the race.
Here's the time that they've all got to beat. Lewis Hamilton crosses the line. It's a 1:21.1.
If you start in a good position, you have a much better chance of winning the race.
Qualifying is the moment that you see these cars on the absolute limit. The driver pushing it to boundaries that you don't even know quite where the edge is.
It's Valtteri Bottas. That's Bottas wrecking his qualifying, wrecking his car.
It's not going to polish out, is it?
Guys, I just wanted to speak with you a few minutes before we need to go out on the track and see what we can do. So, from Jean's and my side, we are confident that we can do better than last year. I think on the pit stops, we have got a few new people, and it will be, I wouldn't say difficult, but we need to get used to the new people in the pit stops. So, I think we can do it. Thank you very much, guys.
How many minutes?
He said that it should be really 3 minutes that he is warming up the carbon fiber. Yeah.
My name is Kevin Magnussen. I'm 26 years old and I drive for Haas F1 team. Qualifying is really intense. There's a lot of pressure in Formula One to deliver results and to perform well, and that's the hardest thing about it.
Now with Kevin Magnussen underneath the bridges. We go and they touch, and that could have been very nasty indeed.
I don't have fear when I drive. I don't ever think about the consequences of crashing the car. I'm not worried about dying. I'll do anything I can to get the best results possible.
Okay, watch the traffic light and the white line. Did you copy?
To drive a lap fast, it's all rhythm and feeling. You feel just like one with the car, as if it was your body. For me, it feels like flying. It's almost like having superpowers.
Magnussen, and he's absolutely nailed sectors 1 and 2. What's his time going to be? A 1:23.1, and that's a sensational lap from Haas.
My God, Stan, you fucking did it. Jesus. Whoa.
What a performance from Haas. They'll be 5th and 6th in tomorrow's race, the highest they've ever started in a Grand Prix.
Great job. I'm really proud of you.
Well done, guys. Fucking hell. Well done.
Well done. 50.
Alle montagne!
Thank you. Hi, Gene. That wasn't bad, though. Fuck. So, yeah, with the big boys, yeah. Pretty cool. We start 5th and 6th.
When we started, everybody told us we will fail, but Gene supported me all the way and has put a lot of faith in me, and failing in doing this is not an option. We need to succeed.
20 drivers, 21 races. There can only be one world champion. Welcome along to the Formula One World Championship.
I love race day. That feeling of having the fans, you know, right there.
It's ringing. Hi, Chris. How you going?
This is Daniel Ricciardo, Chris. That's my dad, Daniel.
Hometown kids, so a lot of fans, a lot of support, and let's try and give them something to cheer about.
How are you?
How are you, buddy?
Yeah. Good.
Good.
Oh, you just got in. Awesome.
Yeah, yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Thank you.
See ya. Wow. Wow.
I know.
This is how the grid will line up. The reigning champion, Lewis Hamilton, on pole. Kimi Raikkonen in second, out-qualifying his 4-time world champion teammate, Sebastian Vettel. Max Verstappen starts 4th. Kevin Magnussen is 5th, giving Haas their best ever start. Daniel Ricciardo is in 8th. after receiving a penalty in practice, so he'll face a huge challenge to get a podium today.
When the race starts, it's a great moment. To be actually in charge of one of the teams out there. That is what I dreamed for when I was a kid.
The atmosphere is tense. You can feel your body is ready to perform.
If someone says they don't get nervous, they're lying. The nerves for me is that anticipation of what we're about to do.
Immediately before a race, I block out all of the other distractions. I'm very conscious that when I look into the driver's eyes, the risk that he's taking on. You have a car going in excess of 200 miles an hour, racing wheel to wheel. These guys have an almost fighter pilot mentality, and that's what separates them from mere mortals.
I remember when he was little going to Melbourne, we had grandstand tickets right opposite the pits. All the drivers are there, and I'm thinking, that's somebody's child. And I was thinking for these poor mothers, and then I ended up being one of them. I never, ever, ever thought that I'd be there one day watching my son.
Radio. Check, 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 check. Okay, so latest info. Wind is stronger today. So you got headwind into turn 1.
Okay. You've got hundreds of people on the grid. And then you've got the 30-second warning.
30 seconds. 30 seconds.
And then all the mechanics go. The grid is then empty, and it's just you and the other drivers.
Rushing into the first corner, it's all instinctive.
Great start from Kevin Magnussen. He's managed to get past Max Verstappen.
Come on, mate, straight in. We haven't got time for this.
Daniel Ricciardo down the inside. He's made up a place.
Emotionally, we're sort of always up and down. All I ever do is pray for a safe race, and then everything else is a bonus.
It's the biggest thing that we're always worried about. Number one thing. Don't even like talking about it now, you know, it makes me nervous.
It's hugely intense. You're looking an awful lot at numbers, at split times, at the sawtooth graphs.
Ricciardo's on a charge up the inside of Nico Hülkenberg.
Nice job, mate.
Hülkenberg fights back. He's got the inside line, but Ricciardo sweeps on by.
It's mentally draining because you're dealing two cars, two different outcomes.
Max recommends saving your overtake for the one place you feel Magnussen is most vulnerable.
And he's gone off!
No, fuck no.
Verstappen just spun.
Grosjean goes past, Ricciardo goes past.
For fuck's sake, man.
Okay, Max.
Yeah.
This is dreamland for Haas. So there's now only Mercedes and Ferraris in front of the young American Haas team.
This is racing. It's realizing it's a big opportunity, the unknown, what you're doing.
Oh, we've got a massive lockup. That's Magnussen.
That's the time to go, guys. It's starting to understand more and more now.
Okay. Box, cabin box, please confirm.
Box.
In the pit stops, that is the only time that you really get in touch with your team. You're on your own on the track. Everything is depending on you. When you pit, that changes completely. That's when you realize how much of a team effort it is.
Kevin Magnussen has pitted.
I don't think that's tight. Left rear. I don't do any other one. I'm sure it's not tight.
There you go, guys.
And who's that going slowly? It's Kevin Magnussen! Kevin Magnussen in the Haas. He's just come out of the pit lane, and now he's grinding to a halt.
Stop the car, stop the car, stop the car, stop the car, stop the car.
Magnussen was on for a sensational result, but now he's retiring.
It's heartbreaking. You don't want it to be true.
And by the looks of things, one of those wheels isn't attached properly.
You just cope with it. You've got two drivers. You just try to stay as calm as possible and focus on the race.
Box now.
Grosjean has now pitted and makes his way back onto the circuit, so Ricciardo now has clear air. That's good news for the Red Bull team. As Grosjean, is that Grosjean going slowly? It is!
Stop the car, stop the car. We have the front left loose. Stop the car, stop the car.
Romain Grosjean pulling over in the other Haas. So both Haases, as soon as they leave the pit lane, have ground to a halt. Unbelievable.
What could have been one of their best weekends on a racetrack has turned into absolute disaster.
When you see it happen on the screen, you think this cannot happen. This is not real. We lost it all in 2 laps. In Formula 1, the highs are very high, the lows are very low. It's easy in my position to blame somebody, but then in the end, the buck stops with me.
Forward and media out here. Are you happy to speak to people?
Oh, yeah, we need to. Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, I mean,
It's a sad afternoon. We've seen all your people, they're heartbroken as well as the drivers. How is it to be a boss in a moment like that?
I mean, in the end, as a boss, you need to lead. I'm sure my disappointment is as big as theirs. We need first to see what went wrong before we can fix it.
Otherwise, you say some nasty words? No. Okay, thanks.
We were in 4th and 5th position.
Just help me with those guys.
Yeah.
And that would have been by far the best result for the team in its history.
I don't know, Gene. I don't have the answer to that one. We just fucked this one up. Yeah. It doesn't make it right. I know that, you know. Saying it fucked it up, it doesn't make it right. Just like... Same mistake. It's unbelievable. The 2 guys putting the wheel on, they were new. 4th and 5th, but Gene, we finished 4th and 5th here. We fucking look like rock stars, huh? And now we are a fucking bunch of wanker. Yeah, bunch of fucking clowns here. I will do a proper investigation, Gene, don't worry, you know that. I will fix it, trust me. The wheel just wasn't done enough, huh?
It felt tight, but as it dropped, it visually looked as though it was loose. Not done up properly, so.
Do you think we train not enough? Or?
We haven't practiced this weekend at all. Tiredness as well. I don't think that'll help. Just on the back foot this weekend.
Yeah. But the wheels were not completely on, you know?
I'm devastated and I am really sorry, so.
Raikkonen running in 3rd position, 4th for Daniel Ricciardo. He's fought his way back from 8th place. If he can get on the podium today, it would mean so much for Daniel Ricciardo.
Mate, that is blistering pace. I don't want to let him breathe. Doing the right thing. Let's keep the pressure on. Understood.
No Australian has been classified in the top 3 of their home race. He will be doing his damnedest on this final lap.
He might as well use the battery.
Understood.
Sebastian Vettel wins the Grand Prix. Hamilton 2nd. 3rd across the line. It's just Kimi Raikkonen with Daniel Ricciardo in 4th.
Oh, half a second in it. Well done, mate.
That was a very good job today, mate. You did get the quickest lap of the race.
Yeah, I tried.
We had serious pace today. We had a real chance of a podium, and I wanted it so bad. I really believe that I should be winning more frequently. I believe I've got the talent and I put in the work. So it's not anger, but it's frustration that comes through.
And the winner from Germany, Sebastian Vettel.
Probably like you. Yeah. Fuck, I nearly threw something on the TV.
Yeah, food delivery.
Anyway.
I tried.
Yeah,
No,
you did.
yeah.
No, I know you did.
It was good. Good result.
You got the crowd excited.
Yeah, I tried.
They were cheering you on.
I tried.
I mean, the pace when you dropped back and you banged in a 25.
Even I didn't think we were that quick.
It's a long season. You know, these cars develop so quickly. You'll know where you'll be starting, but you don't know where you'll be finishing. Things change.
I'd love to be winning tomorrow if I could. That's my ultimate dream. I'm pretty far from that at the moment. I know that things like that don't happen overnight. I'm in a great team that I can grow and prepare myself. Then hopefully one day I can get a chance to fight for a championship.
We should have done better. Everybody in Haas wants to do better, but so does everybody else. Why you watch Formula One? You want to see action, you want to see drama, you want to see the underdog making a good result. A story. Each race should have a story, and the story should not be all the time Mercedes or Ferrari wins, because that story gets old pretty quick.
My teammate Max is becoming more of a threat.
He's one of the most exciting talents in Formula One.
I need to be the faster driver of the two.
There's no more brutal lesson than what he's just had.
Fernando Alonso is my racing hero. Okay, Carlos. Alonso behind you.
The stakes have never been higher for McLaren.
I think these guys are not fucking away.
Championship he would have.
remained a Raider for his entire career, rather than eventually leaving in free agency. For Brady, a loss in that game might have prompted head coach Bill Belichick to return the starting quarterback job to the healthy Drew Bledsoe for the 2002 season. Brady might have remained a backup. His legendary career stalled before it ever truly began. Instead, the obscure rule preserved the victory, launching a dynasty that would claim 6 Super Bowl championships and define the National Football League for 2 decades. It was a stark reminder of how a few milliseconds of a play, interpreted through the cold lens of a rulebook, can alter the trajectory of lives and history forever. The Great Heisman Race of 1997. To understand the nature of competitive passion and how it can divide a nation along regional lines, one must look back to the autumn of 1997, a year that produced one of the most memorable and closely contested races for the Heisman Trophy in the history of college football. The Heisman, first awarded in 1935, had grown to become the most coveted individual honor in amateur athletics, transforming young men into instant celebrities and millionaires. But the 1997 race was unique, featuring a field of extraordinary talent that included future professional Hall of Famers, each presenting a distinct philosophy of how the game should be played. At the center of this drama was Peyton Manning, the quarterback for the University of Tennessee. Manning was the very picture of the consummate quarterback, highly intelligent, possesses exceptional arm strength, a quick release, and an unparalleled work ethic. He was the son of Archie Manning, a legendary quarterback at the University of Mississippi who had endured a difficult professional career with the struggling New Orleans Saints. Archie's career had been a lesson in the fragility of football success, and some observers believed he was quiet but determined to ensure his son Peyton entered the professional ranks under the best possible circumstances. In the spring of 1997, Peyton Manning faced a monumental decision. He was widely expected to leave college early and enter the National Football League draft, where the New York Jets, under the legendary coach Bill Parcells, held the first overall pick and were desperate to select him. The financial temptation was immense, with millions of dollars waiting for him. Yet, in a move that stunned the sports world, Manning held a packed press conference in Knoxville to announce that he was staying at Tennessee for his senior season. Manning explained that his decision was rooted in a desire to fully experience his final year of college, to savor the simple joys of being a student athlete, and to finish what he had started by winning a conference championship and perhaps a national title. It was a decision that was praised by many as a noble embrace of the amateur ideal, though some professional commentators wondered if he was making a significant financial and career mistake by passing up the opportunity to play for Parcells. Entering the 1997 season, Manning was the undisputed frontrunner for the Heisman Trophy, a figure of immense hype who seemed to have the award secured before a single game had been played. But as the season unfolded, several formidable challengers emerged from different corners of the country, each capturing the imagination of fans and the media. In the hills of West Virginia, at Marshall University, a young wide receiver named Randy Moss was putting together a season of breathtaking athletic dominance. Moss was a rare physical specimen, standing 6 feet 5 inches tall and weighing 215 pounds with a speed and leaping ability that made him virtually uncoverable. Yet his journey to Marshall had been marked by personal struggles and legal troubles that had cost him opportunities at Notre Dame and Florida State University. Having lost his chance to play for those powerhouse programs, Moss had returned to his home state, determined to make the most of his final opportunity. Moss played with a fierce, redemptive intensity, scoring 25 touchdowns and accumulating over 1,600 yards of offense. While some voters hesitated to support him due to his past mistakes, his sheer athletic brilliance on the field made it impossible to ignore him. Meanwhile, in the Pacific Northwest, quarterback Ryan Leaf was leading the Washington State University Cougars on a historic run toward their first Rose Bowl appearance in 7 decades. Leaf was a physical force, standing 6 feet 6 inches tall and weighing 235 pounds, with a powerful arm and a fierce, swaggering confidence that polarized fans. He was a player who played with gasoline on a fire, exploding with emotion on the field and displaying a competitive arrogance that some found offensive, but others found incredibly compelling. Under Leaf's leadership, the Cougars became one of the most exciting teams in the country, and he emerged as a legitimate contender for the Heisman. But the most unique challenger of all was emerging in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Charles Woodson, a 20-year-old junior cornerback, was establishing himself as the most versatile and dominant player in the country. Woodson was a natural athlete who played with a quiet, supreme confidence, while his primary position was cornerback, where his exceptional coverage skills shut down opposing wide receivers. He had approached his head coach, Lloyd Carr, with a request to contribute on offense as well. Carr recognized Woodson's rare gifts and began deploying him as a wide receiver and a punt returner. Woodson became a three-way threat, making impact plays in every phase of the game. His coaches and teammates openly championed him as the best overall player in college football, arguing that the Heisman should go to the best player, regardless of what position they played. This was a direct challenge to the history of the Heisman Trophy. Since its inception, the award had been almost exclusively reserved for quarterbacks and running backs, players who accumulated large offensive statistics that were easily measured. No primarily defensive player had ever won the award. Some commentators argued that a defensive cornerback simply could not influence the outcome of a game as much as a quarterback who touched the ball on every play. They argued that Woodson's candidacy was merely a novelty and that the trophy should go to Manning, who was performing at an elite level for a highly ranked Tennessee team. The race began to tighten as the season reached its critical autumn months. 4 Manning, the defining challenge of his career, had always been the University of Florida. He had never beaten the Gators, and many believed he could not win the Heisman unless he broke that streak. In September, the Volunteers traveled to the Swamp in Gainesville for a highly anticipated matchup. It was a brutal, physical game, and despite Manning's best efforts, the Florida defense harassed him all day, securing a victory and preserving Manning's winless record against their rivals. The loss did not eliminate Manning from the Heisman race. He continued to put up spectacular numbers and lead Tennessee to victories, but it opened the door for his competitors. Woodson, meanwhile, was putting together a series of legendary performances that captured the national spotlight in a heated rivalry game against Michigan State. Woodson made a spectacular, leaping, one-handed interception near the sideline that looked more like the play of an elite basketball player than a football defender. The image of that interception was broadcast across the country, signaling that Woodson was closing the gap on Manning. The climax of Woodson's campaign came in November during the legendary matchup between Michigan and Ohio State, with a trip to the Rose Bowl and a potential national championship on the line. Woodson dominated the game. He intercepted a pass in the end zone to stop an Ohio State drive, caught a 37-yard pass to set up a Michigan touchdown, and returned a punt 78 yards for a touchdown, executing a brilliant, weaving run through the Ohio State coverage team. After crossing the goal line, Woodson struck the iconic Heisman pose, a bold statement that electrified the stadium and cemented his status as a national phenomenon. As the voting deadline approached, a fierce regional debate erupted. In the South, particularly in Knoxville, fans and media members felt that Manning was being unfairly targeted by national commentators, specifically those at the Entertainment and Sports Programming Network, who seemed to be driving the momentum toward Woodson. Tensions were so high that when network production crews arrived in Knoxville, some fans threw rocks at their vehicles. The people of Tennessee believed that Manning's decision to return for his senior year, his outstanding career achievements, and his SEC championship victory deserved to be honored, and that giving the award to a defensive player would be a historic injustice. The Heisman electorate, consisting of 870 media members and 50 former winners, was divided. On the night of December 13th, the four finalists, Manning, Woodson, Leaf, and Moss, gathered in the grand ballroom of the Downtown Athletic Club in New York City. When the envelope was opened, the president of the club announced that Charles Woodson was the winner of the 63rd Heisman Trophy. He had secured the historic victory by a narrow margin, becoming the first and only primarily defensive player to win the award. Manning finished as the runner-up, followed by Leaf in third and Moss in fourth. The reaction in Tennessee was one of immediate anger and bitterness. Many fans felt that the award had been diminished, arguing that Manning had been left off several ballots by voters who wanted to ensure Woodson's victory. They believed Manning's career had been slighted in favor of the flashy, late-season momentum of a defensive player. Yet, for the broader college football world, Woodson's victory was seen as a historic and healthy moment for the sport. It brought credibility back to an award that had become predictable, proving that a player's overall impact on the field, even on the defensive side of the ball, could be recognized and celebrated. The 1997 Heisman class would go down as one of the greatest in the history of the sport. The subsequent National Football League draft in 1998 reflected the extraordinary talent of that group, with Manning being selected first overall by the Indianapolis Colts, Leaf going second to the San Diego Chargers, Woodson going fourth to the Oakland Raiders, and Moss being selected by the Minnesota Vikings. While Leaf's career would unfortunately struggle, Manning, Woodson, and Moss would go on to have legendary professional careers, redefining their respective positions and validating the incredible talent of that historic 1997 race. The condemned winner and the Sochi Revolution. To understand how the passions of the sporting world can be utilized to achieve the highest levels of political power, one must travel across the Atlantic to Italy during the late 20th century. It was a nation of deep beauty and immense cultural wealth, but also one that was weary of an entrenched, stagnant political system. For nearly 50 years, the Christian Democratic Party had held a permanent grip on power, a monopoly that had bred a culture of laziness, corruption, and systemic inefficiency. The public felt a deep sense of cynicism, a belief that nothing would ever change in a system that seemed completely closed to new ideas. This political exhaustion was mirrored in the world of Italian football, a sport that was not merely a game in Italy, but a central pillar of national identity and daily life. In the early 1980s, the sport was rocked by the Totonero match-fixing scandal, which resulted in the arrests of several prominent players and the forced relegation of the legendary club AC Milan to the lower division of Serie B. For a generation of young fans who viewed football as a world of dreams and heroes, the scandal was a devastating moral blow. Italian football had hit rock bottom, marked by defensive, cynical play on the pitch and corruption off of it. But in the northern city of Milan, a cultural and economic transformation was underway. Known historically as a grey, industrial town, Milan was reinventing itself as the vibrant fashion and design capital of the Western world. It was a city of pioneers, driven by an entrepreneurial culture that valued style, dynamic change, and hard work. At the forefront of this new Milan was Silvio Berlusconi, a wealthy, ambitious real estate developer. Berlusconi had achieved significant success by building Milano Due, a modern, family-friendly suburb with advanced amenities. But his true genius lay in his understanding of the power of media, recognizing a loophole in the state television monopoly, which allowed local stations to operate but prohibited national broadcasting. Berlusconi created a private national network by sending recorded video cassettes of programs to local stations across the country by synchronizing their broadcast times within a few seconds. He created a de facto national network that offered colorful, entertaining programming that was highly attractive to advertisers. Berlusconi became an entrepreneur of emotions, introducing a style of television that focused on pleasure, consumerism, and entertainment, a stark contrast to the serious, educational programming of the state broadcaster. He made vast amounts of money and built a media empire that gave him direct access to the hearts and minds of the Italian public. In 1986, Berlusconi decided to apply his resources and his vision to the world of sports by purchasing AC Milan, a historic club that was on the brink of bankruptcy. Initially, he had hesitated, as a fortune teller had warned him that buying the club would bring him bad luck. But his competitive drive and his recognition of the unique social power of football overcame his superstition. Berlusconi did not merely want to save AC Milan, he wanted to revolutionize it. He wanted to build a club in the image of his entrepreneurial success, a dynamic, stylish, winning organization that would capture the imagination of the world. His arrival was marked by a theatricality that Italian sports had never seen before. In July of 1986, Berlusconi had the entire team and staff transported to a training ground by a fleet of helicopters to the dramatic strains of Richard Wagner's Ride of the Valkyries. The players emerged from the helicopters dressed in elegant, custom-made suits, signaling the arrival of a new, glamorous era. Berlusconi met with the team and gave them a clear, ambitious mission to become the most dominant and spectacular club in the world. To achieve this, Berlusconi made a highly controversial and risky decision in 1987 by hiring a new coach named Arrigo Sacchi. Sacchi had never coached in the top division of Serie A and had never played professional football, having spent much of his early life working in his family's shoe business. To many in the conservative Italian football establishment, Sacchi was a nobody, and his appointment was viewed as a foolish gamble by an arrogant tycoon. But Sacchi possessed a revolutionary vision of the game. For decades, Italian football had been defined by a defensive philosophy known as catenaccio, which focused on defending deep, avoiding risks, and relying on individual counterattacks. It was a style of play that Sacchi believed reflected the cynical, self-preserving aspects of Italian culture, a desire to survive rather than to create. Sacchi wanted to introduce a collective, offensive style of play based on pressing, zone defense, and the compression of space. He believed that the team should act as a single, coordinated organism, with every player contributing to both defense and attack. Under his system, pressing was not simply running after the ball. It was a scientific coordination of movement designed to starve the opponent of time and space. To implement this demanding system, Berlusconi provided Sacchi with some of the most talented players in the world. He acquired the brilliant Dutch trio of Ruud Gullit Marco van Basten and Frank Rijkaard, combining their exceptional skills. With a strong core of Italian defenders like Franco Baresi and Paolo Maldini. The transition was not easy. The players found Sachai's intense training, sessions and mental demands exhausting, and the team suffered some early losses, including a disappointing elimination from the European Cup competition. The media began to criticize the new coach, predicting that he would not survive the winter. But Berlusconi stood firmly behind his manager, visiting the locker room to tell the players that Sachai would remain and that it was they who would have to adapt. The turning point came as the players began to fully comprehend and execute Sachai's system. AC Milan began to play a style of football that had never been seen in Italy: fast, aggressive, beautiful, and dominant. They systematically dismantled their opponents, culminating in a historic victory over Diego Maradona's Napoli to secure the Italian championship. Gullit became the symbolic icon of this era, athletic, charismatic, and playing with a joyful, rock and roll energy that captivated the fans. The supporters identified deeply with this winning, modern image of the club. AC Milan's success soon extended to the European stage. In the spring of 1989, they faced Real Madrid in the semi-finals of the European Cup. After securing a hard-fought draw in Madrid, Milan produced a flawless, breathtaking performance in the second leg in San Siro, defeating the Spanish Giants 5-0. In May of 1989, just months before the historic fall of the Berlin Wall, AC Milan traveled to Barcelona to play Steaua Bucharest in the European Cup final. Nearly 90,000 Milan fans made the journey across Europe, creating a sea of red and black flags in the stadium. Milan played a perfect game of collective pressing, destroying the Romanian champion 4-0, with 2 goals each from Gullit and Van Basten. Berlusconi had achieved his vision. He had taken a struggling, bankrupt club and transformed it into the greatest team in the world, celebrated for its style, beauty, and dominance. In doing so, he had built a powerful personal narrative. To the Italian public, Berlusconi was no longer just a wealthy businessman. He was a miracle worker, a leader who could take an old, broken institution and make it a world champion. By the early 1990s, as the traditional Italian political parties collapsed under a massive wave of corruption scandals, Berlusconi realized that the country was looking for a savior. He decided to enter politics, launching a new political movement that he named Forza Italia, a phrase taken directly from the chants of the football stadium. He utilized the language, the organization, and the media power of his football club to campaign for the office of Prime Minister. He sold himself to the voters as the ultimate winner, the man who had built Milano Due and AC Milan, promising that he would bring the same efficiency, style, and success to the governance of the nation. Berlusconi famously declared that he was condemned to win, a phrase that captured both his immense ambition and the dangerous burden of his public persona. He could never show weakness or admit defeat, as his entire political power was built on the myth of his inevitable success. He swept into office, becoming Italy's longest-serving prime minister and forever changing the intersection of sports, media, and political power. The interweaving of destinies. When we look back at these three distinct narratives, the frozen drama of the Tuck rule, the intense regional passion of the 1997 Heisman race, and the soccer-fueled political rise of Silvio Berlusconi, we see a shared meditation on the nature of human destiny and the profound impact of single moments. Each of these stories features individuals who are operating at the absolute limit of their abilities, driven by an intense desire to win, yet ultimately subject to forces beyond their control. For Tom Brady and Charles Woodson, their paths crossed on a snowy field in New England and a controversial ruling on a single play set off a butterfly effect that redefined both of their lives. Brady became the icon of a historic dynasty, while Woodson was left to wonder what might have been had the ball been ruled a fumble. In the Heisman race of 1997, we see how the collective passions of fans and the media can transform a sports award into a symbolic battleground. For regional pride, Charles Woodson's historic victory as a defensive player challenged the traditional conventions of the sport, while Peyton Manning's quiet grace in defeat laid the foundation for his own legendary professional career. And in Italy, Silvio Berlusconi demonstrated how the beautiful game could be used to build a modern political empire, showing that the emotions of the sports arena are often the most powerful force in human society. His success with AC Milan became the pedestal upon which he built his political career, proving that in the modern world, the line between sport, entertainment, and power has been permanently blurred. In the end, these stories remind us to approach the ideas of victory and defeat with humility. The margin between the two is often as thin as a snowflake, as obscure as a paragraph in a rulebook, or as fragile as a bounce of a ball in the fog. We are all, in some way, subject to the quiet, unpredictable currents of fate, navigating our lives with the hope that when our moment comes, we will have both the skill to compete and the luck to survive. The trajectory of human events is rarely a straight line. More often it is a delicate web of moments, brief intervals of time where a single decision, a gust of wind, a flake of snow, or a referee's whistle can alter the course of history. We often look back at these moments and call them turning points, but in truth, they are determinants. They are the instances where the butterfly flaps its wings and the storm begins. To understand this phenomenon, one must look at three distinct narratives that occurred across different years, different fields of play, and even different continents. Yet, they are bound by a common thread: the intersection of athletic endeavor, human psychology, and the relentless pursuit of victory. These are the stories of the snowy night in Foxborough, the great collegiate race of 1997, and the rise of a media tycoon who used the beautiful game to conquer a nation. On a Saturday night in January in the year 2002, the air in Foxborough, Massachusetts, was thick with falling snow. No game in the history of the National Football League had ever been played this late in the winter at Foxborough Stadium. The stadium itself was an aging concrete structure, soon to be demolished, but on this night, it was transformed into a quiet, white theater. The owner of the New England Patriots, Robert Kraft, had wanted it this way. When the league had asked the team owners for their preferences regarding the scheduling of the playoff games, Kraft had requested the late slot, desiring the distinct home field advantage of a dark, frigid New England evening, with the hope that a little snow might be thrown into the mix. It was a throwback to the history of the franchise, a reminder of the legendary snowstorm game of 1982, when a snowplow operator on a work release program had cleared a spot on the field for a game-winning kick. The opponents on this night were the Oakland Raiders, a franchise that carried its own dark and dramatic history. The rivalry between the Patriots and the Raiders was old and bitter, filled with memories of physical confrontations and controversial rulings. There was the playoff game of 1976, when a questionable roughing the passer penalty against nose tackle Ray Hamilton had allowed the Raiders to secure a victory. There was the tragic game of 1978, when wide receiver Darryl Stingley was paralyzed after a collision on the field. The Raiders arrived in New England carrying the weight of this past, determined to assert their dominance in the freezing cold. The game was a defensive struggle, played on a surface that grew increasingly slick and treacherous as the hours passed. The footing was uncertain, and catching the football was a constant challenge. Yet for a young quarterback named Tom Brady, the conditions were oddly familiar. Though born in California, Brady had spent his college years at the University of Michigan, where he had become accustomed to the harsh Midwestern winters. He had been selected in the 6th round of the draft, the 199th pick overall, a player whom few expected to ever lead a franchise. But when the veteran starter, Drew Bledsoe, suffered a serious injury earlier in the season, Brady was thrust into the starting role. He was young, accurate, and possessed a quiet determination that had slowly won over his teammates and his coaches. Opposing him on the defensive side of the ball was Charles Woodson, the brilliant cornerback for the Raiders. Woodson and Brady had been teammates at Michigan. They had shared a locker room, practiced against one another, and watched each other grow. Woodson had been the star, the Heisman Trophy winner, who seemed to be 5 years ahead of everyone else in terms of talent and anticipation. Brady had been the hardworking backup who had to fight for every minute of playing time. Now, their paths crossed again on the biggest stage of their professional lives. As the fourth quarter neared its end, the Raiders held a 13-10 lead. The Patriots had the football, driving toward the Oakland half of the field. The clock showed under 2 minutes remaining. The tension in the stadium was palpable, muffled only by the constant falling of the snow. Brady dropped back to pass. He looked to his right, searching for an open receiver, but the coverage was tight. From the left side, Charles Woodson came. On a cornerback blitz, Woodson, reading the play with the anticipation that had made him a legend, sprinted toward his former college teammate. He arrived undetected, striking Brady and forcing the football from his grasp. The ball tumbled into the snow, and a wild scramble ensued. The Raiders recovered the football, and their sideline erupted in celebration. The game appeared to be over. The Raiders were heading to the American Football Conference Championship game, and the young quarterback's season was seemingly at an end. But then, referee Walt Coleman received a message from the replay booth. Under the rules of the game, any play under 2 minutes was subject to review. Coleman walked over to the sideline monitor, shielding his eyes from the snow as he watched the replay over and over again. The rule in question was National Football League Rule 3, Section 22, Article 2. It was an obscure piece of legislation known to few outside of the officiating ranks. The rule stated that when an offensive player is holding the ball to pass it forward, any intentional forward movement of his arm starts a forward pass, even if the player loses possession of the ball as he is attempting to tuck it back toward his body. If the ball comes loose before he gets it tucked against his side, it is ruled an incomplete pass rather than a fumble. To the naked eye and to the players on the field, it looked like a clear fumble. Brady had started to throw, stopped his motion, and was in the process of bringing the ball back to his body when Woodson made contact. But according to the strict technical interpretation of the rule, because his arm had moved forward and he had not yet securely tucked the ball back against his chest, it was an incomplete pass. After several minutes of intense scrutiny, Walt Coleman returned to the field. He announced to the crowd that the ruling had been reversed. It was an incomplete pass. The Patriots retained possession of the football. The psychological impact of the decision was immediate. The Raiders felt they had been robbed of a victory, and the momentum shifted in an instant. The Patriots, granted a second chance, drove down the field. Adam Vinatieri, the reliable kicker, stepped onto the field for a 45-yard field goal attempt. The snow was deep, the wind was cold, and the ball was like a block of ice. Yet, Vinatieri executed what many consider to be one of the most difficult kicks in the history of the sport, sending the ball through the uprights to tie the game. In overtime, the Patriots won the coin toss, drove down the field, and Vinatieri kicked another field goal to secure the victory. The young Tom Brady and his teammates were moving on, eventually winning the Super Bowl and establishing a dynasty that would dominate the league for nearly 2 decades. The Raiders, meanwhile, were left to contemplate the fragile nature of success, wondering how a single interpretation of an obscure rule could change the trajectory of so many lives. To fully understand the roots of this dramatic confrontation, one must travel back 5 years to the collegiate football season of 1997. It was a year that featured one of the most memorable and debated races for the Heisman Trophy. The the award given annually to the most outstanding player in college football. The frontrunner for the award was Peyton Manning, the quarterback for the University of Tennessee. Manning was the son of Archie Manning, the legendary quarterback who had played for the New Orleans Saints. Peyton was the consummate student athlete, highly intelligent, possessing a strong arm, and dedicated to the study of the game. He had been expected to enter the professional draft after his junior year, where he would have been the first overall selection and secured a contract worth millions of dollars. The New York Jets, led by coach Bill Parcells, were eager to draft him. But Manning made a decision that shocked the sporting world. He chose to return to Tennessee for his senior year. He wanted to finish what he had started, to experience the college life for one more season, and to win a national championship. His decision was celebrated by college football fans who saw it as a rare example of loyalty and dedication in an era increasingly dominated by money. Manning entered the 1997 season as the heavy favorite for the Heisman. The media had built a narrative around him, suggesting that the trophy was his to lose. But as the weeks passed, other candidates began to emerge, challenging his dominance. Among them was Charles Woodson, the cornerback for the Michigan Wolverines. Woodson was a unique talent in an era where players rarely played on both sides of the ball. Woodson was a three-way threat. He was a shutdown defender who routinely neutralized the opponent's best receiver. He was an explosive wide receiver who could make big plays on offense. And he was a dangerous punt returner who could change the course of a game in a single return. The debate over who should win the Heisman became a regional battle, stoking passions across the country. In the South, fans and media members argued that Manning was the obvious choice, a traditional quarterback who had played at a consistently high level for 4 years. In the Midwest, supporters of Woodson argued that he was the best overall football player in the country, a unique talent whose impact on the game could not be measured by statistics alone. The race came to a head in November. Tennessee played a series of tough games, but Manning was unable to lead his team to a victory over their biggest rival, the University of Florida. To many voters, this was a significant blemish on his record. Meanwhile, Michigan was undefeated, and Woodson was producing a series of spectacular performances. In the final game of the regular season, Michigan faced their arch-rival, Ohio State. It was a game with national championship implications, played before a national television audience. Woodson seized the moment. He intercepted a pass in the end zone to stop an Ohio State drive. He caught a long pass to set up a Michigan touchdown, and he returned a punt 66 yards for a touchdown, striking the famous Heisman pose as he ran down the sideline. It was a statement game, the kind of performance that captured the imagination of the voters. In New York, at the Downtown Athletic Club, the votes were tallied. On December 13, 1997, Charles Woodson was announced as the winner of the Heisman Trophy, becoming the first primarily defensive player to ever receive the honor. The decision was met with anger in Tennessee, where fans felt that Manning had been overlooked despite his outstanding career and his decision to stay in school. But for Woodson, it was the realization of a dream, a confirmation of his status as one of the greatest players of his generation. The draft that followed in the spring of 1998 saw Manning selected first overall by the Indianapolis Colts, while Woodson was taken fourth by the Oakland Raiders. Their paths would remain separate for several years, until that snowy night in Foxborough brought them together once again. While the drama of American football was unfolding on frozen fields and in university stadiums, a different kind of spectacle was taking place in Italy. It was a drama that combined sport, television, and political power, led by one of the most complex and influential figures in modern Italian history, Silvio Berlusconi. To understand Berlusconi's rise, one must understand the state of Italy in the late 1970s and early 1980s. The country was going through a difficult period marked by economic stagnation, political instability, and the constant threat of domestic terrorism. The political system was dominated by the Christian Democrats, a party that had held power since the end of the Second World War. To many Italians, the system appeared corrupt, ossified, and incapable of change. In this environment, Silvio Berlusconi emerged as a new kind of leader. He was an ambitious real estate developer from Milan who had built a series of modern housing developments designed for families and young professionals. But his true genius lay in his understanding of the power of television. At the time, the state held a monopoly on national television broadcasting. Local private stations were allowed, but they were prohibited from forming national networks. Berlusconi found a creative way to circumvent this restriction. He recorded his programs on video cassettes and sent them to local stations across the country. By coordinating the broadcast times so that the programs aired only a few seconds apart, he effectively created a national private network. His television stations offered a different kind of programming than the dry, educational content provided by the state. Berlusconi filled his channels with colorful, entertaining shows, American television series, and plenty of advertising. He offered a television oriented toward pleasure, consumption, and entertainment, a reflection of the changing values of a society that was ready to move past the grim years of the 1970s. Berlusconi recognized that sport, and soccer in particular, was a powerful vehicle for reaching the masses. In Italy, soccer was more than a game. It was a passion, a religion, and a central part of the national identity. In 1986, Berlusconi purchased Associazione Calcio Milan, one of the country's most historic clubs. At the time, the club was in ruins. It had been disgraced by a match-fixing scandal, relegated to the second division, and was on the verge of bankruptcy. Berlusconi saw an opportunity. He did not just want to save the club, he wanted to transform it into the greatest team in the world. He began by changing the culture of the club. He invested heavily in modernizing the training facilities at Milanello, paying attention to every detail, from the quality of the pitches to the diet of the players. He wanted the club to reflect the values of Milan: dynamism, style, professionalism, and success. His most important decision was the hiring of a new coach, Arrigo Sacchi. Sacchi was an unconventional choice. He had never played professional soccer and was coaching in the second division when Berlusconi discovered him. Many in the Italian media were skeptical, questioning how a man with no playing background could lead a major club. But Sacchi possessed a revolutionary vision of the game. Traditional Italian soccer was defensive, cautious, and focused on avoiding mistakes. Sacchi wanted to play an aggressive, collective, and attacking style. He introduced the concept of pressing, where all 11 players on the field worked together to compress the space and pressure the opponent. To implement this vision, Berlusconi acquired some of the best players in the world, including the Dutch trio of Ruud Gullit, Marco van Basten, and Frank Rijkaard. They joined a strong core of Italian players, including Franco Baresi, Paolo Maldini, and Carlo Ancelotti. The results were spectacular. Associazione Calcio Milan began to dominate both domestic and European soccer. They won the Italian championship in 1988 and followed it with consecutive European Cup victories in 1989 and 1990. Their victories were characterized by a style of play that was fast, beautiful, and overwhelming. The 5-0 victory over Real Madrid in the 1989 semifinals and the 4-0 demolition of Steaua Bucharest in the final in Barcelona became legendary performances, watched by millions of people around the world. Berlusconi was always at the center of these triumphs. He presented himself as the architect of the team's success, the visionary leader who had taken a failing institution and made it a global champion. He used his television networks to broadcast these victories, creating an image of himself as a man who was condemned to win, a leader with the Midas touch who could transform anything he touched into gold. In 1994, as the old Italian political system collapsed under the weight of a massive corruption scandal, Berlusconi decided to enter politics. He created a new political party named Forza Italia, borrowing the popular chant used by supporters of the Italian national soccer team. His campaign was built on the narrative of his success with Associazione Calcio Milan. He told the Italian voters that he would do for the country what he had done for his soccer club: bring professionalism, modern organization, and a winning mentality. He presented himself as a self-made man, a successful entrepreneur who was not part of the old, corrupt political establishment. The strategy was highly effective. Berlusconi was elected prime minister, and he would go on to lead the country for several terms, becoming Italy's longest-serving post-war leader. His political career was controversial, marked by legal challenges and personal scandals, but his hold on power was reinforced by his ownership of the media and his association with the triumphs of
Associazione Calcio Milan.
These three narratives, though different in their details, share a common theme: They're stories about the pursuit of victory and the way that success on the field of play can shape the larger world. For Tom Brady, the controversial decision in the snow of Foxborough was the beginning of a legendary career. Had the ruling gone the other way and the Raiders secured the victory, Brady might have returned to the bench as a backup. And the history of the New England Patriots would have been very different. For Charles Woodson, the victory in the 1997 Heisman race was a confirmation of his unique talent, but the loss in Foxborough would remain a source of pain, a reminder of a game that felt stolen away. And for Silvio Berlusconi, the victories of Associazione Calcio Milan were the foundation of a political empire, a demonstration of how the passion of sport can be used to capture the imagination of a nation. In the end, these stories remind us of the human element in all of our endeavors. Behind the statistics, the rules, and the television broadcasts are individuals who are shaped by moments of luck, choice, and determination. They are players on a stage, performing in a theater where the outcome is never certain and where a single moment can change everything. Prologue: the butterfly on the field. The human mind possesses an innate desire for order, a quiet but persistent need to believe that the trajectory of our lives is governed by grand designs and predictable equations. We construct elaborate systems of rules. We establish boundaries of white chalk on green grass, and we pretend that within these artificial borders, justice is absolute. We tell ourselves that hard work yields victory, that talent is inevitably rewarded, and that the scales of fate remain balanced. Yet history has a peculiar way of hinges on the microscopic. A single, heavy snowflake falling on a white line, a momentary hesitation of a young quarterback's arm, a ballot cast by a distant journalist who has never seen the player in person, a helicopter descending from a gray Italian sky to the operatic strains of Richard Wagner. These are the small, seemingly disconnected occurrences that shift the currents of our collective memory. This is a study of those quiet intersections where athletic endeavor, systemic rules, and human ambition collide. It is the story of how three disparate narratives, the snowy crucible of a playoff game in New England, the media-saturated race for a bronze trophy in the late 20th century, and the calculated rise of a media tycoon in Milan, became bound by the same invisible thread of destiny. Through these moments, we observe the butterfly effect in its purest form, demonstrating that the difference between legendary triumph and historical obscurity is often a matter of a few millimeters, a few seconds, or the interpretation of a single, poorly written sentence in a rulebook. Chapter 1: The Frozen Crucible. In the middle of January in the year 2002, the air over Foxborough, Massachusetts, carried the sharp, unforgiving bite of a classic New England winter. It was a cold that did not merely rest on the skin but seemed to burrow deep into the bone, slowing the blood and turning breath into thick clouds of white vapor. Outside the concrete walls of Foxborough Stadium, a relentless Snowstorm was transforming the landscape into a vast, silent wilderness. Inside, however, the atmosphere was thick with the nervous energy of thousands of spectators, their voices muffled by the falling snow but still carrying the unmistakable vibration of anticipation. No game in the history of the National Football League had ever been played this late in the winter at this particular venue. The decision to schedule a night game in the depths of January in this northern outpost had been met with skepticism by many, but the owner of the Patriots, Robert Kraft, had desired precisely this. When the league had consulted the franchise owners regarding their scheduling preferences, Kraft had requested the distinct, chilly advantage of playing in the dark, frigid confines of Foxborough, with the hope that the elements might serve as a silent 11th defender on the field. For the Patriots, the snow was an old ally, evoking memories of 2 decades prior, when a December storm had blanketed the field, culminating in a historic moment where a snowplow operator on a work-release program from the state penitentiary had cleared a small patch of turf for a game-winning kick. On this night, the opponent was the Oakland Raiders, a franchise that arrived carrying the heavy baggage of a long, often hostile rivalry with New England. These two teams shared a history defined by physical violence and controversial officiating, stretching back to a 1976 playoff game where a highly disputed roughing the passer penalty had altered the course of both franchises. But on this freezing evening, the narrative was centered on 2 young men whose paths had first crossed years earlier on the campus of the University of Michigan. One was Tom Brady, the young, unheralded quarterback of the Patriots, who had spent his collegiate career fighting for playing time, ultimately being selected in the 6th round of the draft with the 199th pick. The other was Charles Woodson, the celebrated cornerback of the Raiders, a Heisman Trophy winner whose athletic grace had made him the epitome of success when they were teenagers in Ann Arbor. As the game progressed, the field became a blank canvas of white, the yard lines vanishing beneath the accumulating snow. For a quarterback, such conditions are deceptively advantageous, while the defense struggles to find footing, slipping. As they attempt to react to sudden changes of direction, the quarterback's mind can operate at its usual velocity, exploiting the forced simplicity of the defensive coverages. With just over 2 minutes remaining in the 4th quarter, the Raiders held a narrow lead of 13-10. The Patriots, desperate to keep their season alive, faced a 2nd down and 3 from the Oakland 47-yard line. Brady gathered his teammates in the huddle, the cold air stinging their faces as they prepared for the play. The offensive coordinator had called a play designed to exploit a 3-by-1 receiver alignment, hoping to isolate a single receiver on the backside of the formation. On the defensive side, Charles Woodson was waiting, having observed his former collegiate teammate for years. Woodson possessed a deep understanding of Brady's tendencies. He positioned himself carefully, communicating with his fellow defensive backs anticipating that the young quarterback would look toward the single receiver. As the ball was snapped, Woodson did not drop into coverage. Instead, he came on a sudden, disguised blitz from the edge, his eyes locked on the target. Chapter 2: The Anatomy of a Rule. The collision was instantaneous. Just as Brady began to bring the ball back toward his body after a brief passing motion, Woodson struck him from the side. The impact was clean, a perfectly timed hit that dislodged the football from the quarterback's grasp. The ball tumbled into the snow, a brown leather oval, spinning against the white ground. To every player on the field, and to every spectator in the stadium, it appeared to be a classic sack and fumble. A wild celebration erupted on the Oakland sideline. The Raiders believed they had secured the victory and with it, a trip to the American Football Conference championship game in Pittsburgh. Brady stood in the snow, his jersey dusted with white, his face reflecting the heavy weight of what seemed to be a season-ending mistake. But as the defensive players began to walk off the field, referee Walt Coleman received a communication from the replay booth. Under the rules of the league, any play occurring under the 2-minute warning was subject to video review. Coleman walked to the small television monitor on the sideline, shielding his eyes from the falling snow as he studied the grain of the footage. The rule in question was Rule 3, Section 22, Article 2 of the National Football League Rulebook, a passage that would soon become etched into the annals of sports history. The text of the rule was precise, yet its application was counterintuitive. It stated that when an offensive player is holding the ball to pass it forward, any intentional forward movement of his arm starts a forward pass. Crucially, the rule added that if the player loses possession of the ball while attempting to tuck it back toward his body, it must be ruled an incomplete pass rather than a fumble, provided the ball comes loose before it is securely tucked against his side. In the warmth of the television broadcast booth, analysts debated the physical reality of the play. To the naked eye, Brady had clearly abandoned his intent to throw the football. He was attempting to secure it with both hands, shielding it from the oncoming rush. Yet the mechanics of his arm motion had initiated a forward movement before the contact occurred. After several minutes of intense scrutiny, Coleman stepped back onto the snowy field. He raised his arm, announcing to the frozen crowd that the ruling on the field had been reversed. It was an incomplete pass. The Patriots would retain possession of the football. The decision was met with absolute disbelief by the Raiders. To them, the ruling felt like an act of administrative theft, a technicality utilized to rescue a young quarterback from a critical error. The psychological momentum of the game shifted in an instant. Though the Patriots were still trailing by 3 points, they now possessed a renewed lease on life. Brady returned to the huddle, his composure restored. He directed the offense down the field, setting up a 45-yard field goal attempt for kicker Adam Vinatieri. In a blinding blizzard, with several inches of snow covering the turf, Vinatieri executed what many would later describe as the most difficult kick in the history of the sport. The ball cut through the snowy night, sailing between the uprights to send the game into overtime. In the sudden death extra period, the Patriots won the coin toss, marched down the field with a series of quick, precise passes, and Vinatieri secured the victory with another short field goal. The Patriots were advancing. The Raiders were heading home to Oakland, left to contemplate a rule that had transformed their apparent victory into a bitter, unforgettable defeat. Chapter 3: The Echoes of 1997. To fully comprehend the depth of the drama that unfolded in the snow of Foxborough, one must travel back 4 years to the autumn of 1997, to a time when college football was dominated by a different set of personalities, and the Heisman Trophy was the center of a national debate that stoked deep regional passions. The 1997 Heisman Trophy race was not a simple contest of statistics. It was a battle of narratives, a clash of football philosophies that captured the imagination of the entire country. The field of candidates was extraordinary, featuring 4 individuals who would go on to redefine their respective positions at the professional level. At the center of the stage was Peyton Manning, the quarterback of the University of Tennessee. Manning was college football royalty, the son of the legendary Ole Miss quarterback Archie Manning. He was a player of meticulous preparation, possessing an analytical mind and a physical presence that made him the presumptive first selection in the upcoming professional draft. In the spring of 1997, Manning had made a decision that shocked the sporting world. Rather than entering the draft early and accepting the millions of dollars that awaited him as the likely choice of the New York Jets, he chose to return to Knoxville for his senior season. His motivation was simple. He wished to experience his final year of college, to win a Southeastern Conference championship, and to pursue the elusive national title that had evaded the Volunteers. Manning's return was greeted with immense adulation in Tennessee, where children were named in his honor, and his status approached that of a folk hero. He entered the season as the overwhelming favorite for the Heisman Trophy, an award that his father had never won, despite his legendary status. Yet, as the autumn weeks progressed, other figures began to emerge from the crowded landscape of college football. In Huntington, West Virginia, a young wide receiver named Randy Moss was performing athletic feats that seemed to defy the laws of physics. Playing for Marshall University, Moss was a player of immense speed and leaping ability, scoring touchdowns with a frequency that demanded national attention despite the relatively modest stature of his school's athletic program. In the Pacific Northwest, Ryan Leaf, the imposing quarterback of Washington State University, was carving up opposing defenses with a powerful arm and a swaggering confidence. Leaf's performances had propelled the Cougars toward their first Rose Bowl appearance in 7 decades, establishing him as a viable challenger to Manning's status as the top quarterback prospect in the nation. But the most intriguing challenger was emerging from Ann Arbor, Michigan. Charles Woodson, a junior cornerback, was demonstrating that a defensive player could influence the outcome of a game just as dramatically as any quarterback or running back. Woodson was not merely a defender, he was a versatile weapon, returning punts with explosive speed and occasionally lining up as a wide receiver to score critical touchdowns. The debate over who should win the trophy became a surrogate for larger arguments about the nature of the sport. Should the Heisman, an award traditionally reserved for quarterbacks and running backs, be given to a defensive specialist? Or did it belong to Manning, whose career represented the very ideal of the student-athlete and whose decision to stay in school had endeared him to traditionalists across the nation? Chapter for the verdict in New York. As the month of November arrived, the pressure on the candidates intensified. Every pass, every tackle, and every interception was scrutinized by the 870 members of the media and the 50 living Heisman winners who held the ballots. The turning point of the race occurred on a gray Saturday in late November, during the annual rivalry game between the University of Michigan and Ohio State University, with a trip to the Rose Bowl and a potential national championship on the line. Charles Woodson delivered a performance that would define his candidacy. He intercepted a pass in the end zone to halt an Ohio State drive, caught a long pass to set up a Michigan touchdown, and returned a punt 78 yards for a score, striking a triumphant pose as he entered the end zone. On the same afternoon, Peyton Manning was performing admirably against Kentucky, throwing 5 touchdown passes and accumulating over 500 yards through the air. Yet the narrative momentum had shifted. The media, always hungry for a dramatic pursuit, began to rally around the novelty of Woodson's multi-dimensional excellence. In Tennessee, the shifting sentiment was viewed with growing resentment. Fans and local media suspected that national television networks were actively steering the trophy toward the Midwest, ignoring Manning's lifetime of achievement in favor of Woodson's late-season spectaculars. When the 4 finalists, Manning, Woodson, Leaf, and Moss, arrived in New York for the ceremony in December, the tension was palpable. The Heisman voting was divided into 6 geographic regions, designed to eliminate regional bias, but the close nature of the race suggested that the margin would be razor-thin. In the grand ballroom of the downtown athletic club, the envelope was opened. The announcer declared that the 63rd Heisman Trophy belonged to Charles Woodson. He had become the first primarily defensive player in the history of college football to win the prestigious award. Manning was left as the runner-up, a result that sparked outrage throughout the South. Angry fans flooded the athletic club with phone calls, protesting what they perceived as a grave injustice. Manning, ever dignified, accepted the result with grace, but the disappointment was a quiet shadow over the conclusion of his collegiate career. The subsequent NFL draft of 1998 would see Manning selected first overall by the Indianapolis Colts, while Ryan Leaf went second to the San Diego Chargers, and Woodson was taken 4th by the Oakland Raiders. The draft solidified their professional paths, but the echoes of that December night in New York would linger, establishing a competitive subtext that would reappear. Years later, on a snowy night in New England. Chapter 5: The Italian Connection. To understand how sport can transcend the boundaries of the playing field and become an instrument of absolute political and cultural power, one must look away from the snow of Massachusetts and the stadiums of the American Midwest, turning instead to the sun-drenched peninsula of Italy during the late 20th century. In the early 1980s, Italy was a nation searching for its identity. The country had endured a decade of domestic terrorism, political instability, and economic stagnation. To many citizens, the political system appeared hopelessly corrupt, dominated by a permanent class of politicians who had occupied power since the end of the Second World War. Yet, beneath the surface of this political stasis, a cultural revolution was underway, driven by the rapid growth of private television and a new spirit of entrepreneurial capitalism. At the forefront of this transformation was Silvio Berlusconi, a wealthy Milanese businessman who had built a fortune in real estate before turning his attention to the media industry. Berlusconi was a man of immense ambition, possessing a keen understanding of the desires of the modern consumer. He recognized that the state-run television networks, with their serious educational programming, were out of step with an public that yearned for entertainment, color, and escapism. Through his media company, Fininvest, Berlusconi created a television empire that offered a mix of American dramas, vibrant game shows, and relentless advertising. But Berlusconi understood that to truly capture the heart of the Italian public, he needed to control the nation's greatest passion, soccer. In the mid-1980s, Association Football Club Milan, one of the country's historic franchises, was on the verge of ruin. The club had been relegated to the second division following a series of match-fixing scandals, and its financial debts were mounting. To many, Milan was a symbol of a bygone era of athletic greatness, tarnished by the realities of modern corruption. In 1986, Berlusconi purchased the club, recognizing its potential to serve as a powerful vehicle for his own brand of success. His entry into the world of soccer was marked by the same showmanship that characterized his television networks. He arrived at the team's training facility in a fleet of helicopters, accompanied by the dramatic music of Richard Wagner, presenting his players as modern gladiators who were destined to conquer the world. Berlusconi's vision for Milan was not merely to win games, but to do so with style, elegance, and an offensive philosophy that would revolutionize the sport. He famously declared that he was condemned to win, a phrase that captured both his relentless ambition and the high-stakes narrative he was constructing around his own persona. Chapter 6: The Revolution of Arrigo Sacchi. To implement his vision of a spectacular, dominant football team, Berlusconi made a decision that was greeted with widespread skepticism by the Italian sports media. He hired Arrigo Sacchi, a young coach who had never played professional soccer and whose previous experience was limited to coaching in the lower divisions. Sacchai was a visionary who rejected the defensive, cautious tactics that had dominated Italian soccer for generations. He believed in a system based on collective movement, high-intensity pressing, and the compression of space on the field. Under Sacchai's direction, the concept of defense was transformed from